is episode 6 of Training, Thought and Truth. I'm here with Lizzy, who's someone who does a bit of running and is kind of a spiritual person, I'd say, from what I've heard. I haven't heard much from Jimmy, who did episode 5 with us, but I think it's better when you don't know much, so when you're talking about it, it's more authentic, kind of, So the podcast is about, it's training, thought and truth. So training is your physical health, thought is your mental health, and spiritual is, truth is your spiritual health. And kind of how I think that between them three headings combined, you can talk about nearly anything. You can pull anything from it. So you do a bit of, is it half marathon running?
Yeah.
Yeah, how did you get into doing that?
Well, I started off with Couch 5K.
Oh yeah, the app?
No,
sorry, I use the app, sorry.
Yeah. So I started off, there was a group in my weight loss class.
Yeah.
I was in Seminole at the time. I was after having my 4th child, and she was about a year old. So I decided to start doing some exercise, and started off Couch 5K. Done that, didn't think I'd ever do a 5K.
Yeah.
Let alone anything else.
Was it literally from the couch? You weren't doing anything?
I literally went from the couch.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And done that, then kind of got the running bug and started to like...
The running high is what they call it.
Yeah, the runner's high, the endorphins and feeling good and seeing results and things like that. So decided then I'd train 5K to 10K.
Yeah. So
done that.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump, and it's double because when you're running, you're breaking it down all the time. I do 2.5 this way 4 times. Or,
you plan it out in your head or your phone or whatever. And do you use any trackers? Would you bring your phone to see your distance or watches?
I never did at the start. No, not until I got maybe past 10K.
Right.
Then I started going, I want to watch,
Yeah.
Everyone had these watches.
Did you find it helped?
But, well, I didn't get one for myself. I got one for my husband, actually. So I used his.
Yeah.
And I did find with my pace, it did help. Because I needed to, in my head, I had a time I wanted to break. So I know I'd have to run, say, 6 minutes per kilometre.
Right.
In order to break the hour or under.
Yeah.
So after a while, I just have a Fitbit now at the moment because...
Did you find them good?
Yeah, it's all right.
I think they're, in some ways, does it check your heart rate and stuff like that, does it? Yeah, I think they're good for some ways. I think, you keep an eye on your steps and your pace. You can probably gauge yourself off your last or where you usually are. If you're kind of behind or... Yeah,
your past runs and it tells you have you increased or what's your fitness like now.
Sometimes it's good when you save and you look back over the week, you have it logged and you're kind of like, it's nice to see you've burnt down calories or you've done this, that and the other kind of in a way. But have you noticed any injuries creeping from doing that? Because you went on from, you do half marathon. What is the distance of that?
It's 21 kilometres.
21 kilometres, okay.
Yeah. So I went then from 10K to train to 10 mile.
Right.
So they say in logic, once you do 10 mile, you can do half.
Yeah.
So I thought if I got to 10 mile, I'd do the half.
10 mile is a big jump.
So that was 16 kilometres.
Yeah. Okay.
So thankfully, no major injuries. The usual, maybe sciatica, maybe the knee. Now, when I first started running, my knee used to flare up, balloon quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I take salt baths and I went for a sports massage, every couple of months. Really kind of more for me, the nutrition was where I struggled.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
because it's one thing taking up running. Yeah. It's another thing, the food. Don't they say it's like 70-30 or 80-20 kind of food side of things?
Yeah.
And I often said I do agree with that in some ways. In other ways, I do think that, sometimes they take that data from the run you do from minute 1 to minute 30, say, and then they calculate how much calories you lost. But it also put your body into kind of fat burning mode, where metabolism speeds up. So you are actually, your speed foods work better afterwards. So I do think that, I think it's almost 50-50 in some ways. Now maybe a bit more eating wise, I know you can drop some amount of weight with eating, but you won't tone up or be physically fit. No. Lungs and heart and organs wise.
And all the kind of personal trainers and people will tell you, don't eat your exercise calories. You know, if you have a goal, don't eat them.
Yeah.
Whereas I was always starving after doing long runs.
Yeah.
And quite often I could be hungry for 2 or 3 days.
Really, yeah.
And
Jeez.
I just wanted to eat.
Yeah, sometimes it gives you that craving for it when you do a big run. Like I remember my first 100k cycle I did, and I don't think I was able for it when I did it. And I came back and say I'd been eating well the night before, drinking water, eating a good breakfast, going out and eating snacks, healthy snacks along the way. Then I threw the bike into the back of the car and we ordered a takeaway. And I ate that, and then I ate the dinner from earlier on, and reheated it, and then how many calories do you actually put back on,
Exactly, yeah.
But it does it does a bit.
Yeah.
So just talking about injuries or running, I know there's a lot of people, and I've heard it a lot, I came across a lot of injuries myself. Shin splints was a big thing for me. I always kind of had them. And I know there's an idea, you're going out and running on pavement. See, I think running is the most readily accessible kind of exercise to you. It's just a matter of putting your shoes on and going outside. And it's a lot easier than going to the gym, driving there, clicking in and all the rest, But I know you can come across the pain. But I wonder in a lot of ways, I went to a physio and they said it's just your shins are actually just knotted up. It's not your bones. They said, and they did this dry needling technique, and it freed up my shins completely then. Right. And then I went running and there was no pain. And then they said, we do a bit of lower body weights, weightlifting on your legs, and you build them up.
Yeah.
I was reading interesting facts on running that it actually, if you do like 20 to 30 kilometers, your bone density actually increases like weightlifting. So your body adapts to it.
Yeah.
But when you go over the 50 mark a week, your immune system and all breaks down. So they say the most healthy people are people who run 3 times a week for 20 minutes.
Right.
And that's what you should aim for. And if you're having problems with legs and knees and all, you can get kind of customized insoles or go see a sports specialist. And there's ways of tweaking it. Yeah. Because I know if you turn around and say to someone, don't go running, you'll wreck yourself. It's very hard to go and do something else then as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very hard, and it's great. They say,
I used to just let that go over my head when people would say that.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, there's people in our club now in Castlearmid, and I mean they're going on to do their 3rd marathon this year. And they're good in getting their sports massage and looking after themselves and stuff like that. But for me, stretching was a big thing.
Really? Okay, yeah.
So
I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, and now the stretching. When I didn't stretch properly, I would notice that I would literally seize up.
Yeah.
And the times when I spend time just to 10 minutes, 15 minutes after a run to really just stretch out. And my calves used to, my lower calves and my upper calf used to really pain me. Yeah. And again, strengthening them by foam rolling and stretching out.
Just all the exact things, we were talking on the last one, and we were talking about I'm seeing a physio at the moment, and about my legs and foam rolling and calf stretches, where you go down on a step.
That's what I do.
Exact things, and they help some fierce, I used to be able to do 1 run a week before my shins would feel better again. And I did 3 2 weeks after I went to see her in the same week, and it's the first time I've ever been able to do that without having pain in my legs. It definitely does help, doesn't it? If you knew it inside out.
Yeah, I do it on the stairs or on the
stairs,
path outside.
Yeah, you can do it anywhere. It's so easy to stretch it,
Or even if you're waiting for the kettle to boil, stretch out your calves.
Yeah, you do it there and then. But as well, when we're talking about the injuries of it, I was just looking up the longevity of how people can run. I was talking to, on episode 1, Noel, a friend of mine, and he was saying, you can run for as long as you want, you can cycle for as long as you want. You see 80, 90-year-olds sometimes jogging and that,
Yeah.
But the youngest marathon runner in the world is a guy, I think he's from Brazil, and he's turning 5 this year, and he has 48 marathons run.
Wow.
And the oldest is a 100-year-old from Africa who's running marathons. But it just goes to show you that spectrum. It can be done, and it's worthwhile looking into it and getting yourself checked, and maybe getting your gait done if you're having problems, or getting customized shoes and all. But it helps as well as on the physical side, your mental health and self-esteem and all. It's proven to go a lot higher, jump up. It's a study done recently, like 80% of men find it was done in Canada. 80% of men found that they feel better in themselves. They think they look better, and 60% of women felt the same way. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting. There's a differential there as well. You know, but,
and it's not even you could go for a walk.
Yeah.
And might not get the same endorphin.
Yeah, that's
as to run.
Yeah. But I think you take yourself out of comfort zone and run, don't you? And you kind of like
it's a mental thing.
Yeah.
I always found for me, running was myself breaking through my own mental barriers.
Yeah.
Something I thought I couldn't do, I was doing, and I could achieve. And even on days, I mean, this morning I went for a 7 kilometre now, and it was one of the hardest ones I've had.
Really, yeah.
Like I'm only really starting back. I had surgery 9 months ago.
Oh, did you? On your legs, your knee?
No, on my stomach.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had some cyst removed, and while I was having the cyst removed, they punctured. Was it my bowel was punctured
during surgery?
Yeah, which then resulted in my appendix having to come out, so it turned into a major operation. So it took me. I haven't really been running up until about maybe 3 months ago.
Really?
I'm back into it now.
So how hard was that? Because I'm obviously laid off now with my arm or my shoulder broken. Had to get plates in it. I was training for the Ring of Kerry 1 week before it. Went over the last kilometre of a cycle. But I find, I only have to stop for 6 weeks, right? I presume you might have had to stop for longer. Months, yeah. And how, mentally, in my mind, it's cracking the way the summer is now, and I can see people zoom by on the bikes, and people running, and it's killing me because the energy is low with the medication, and I'm going for a walk for 3 kilometres where I was doing 5k runs, or I was doing 7 or 8k cycles. I think the mental thing is a tough thing to take on as well, isn't it? Did you find that or was it more physical getting back into it?
Yeah, I think mental and physical.
Yeah, both, yeah.
Because I had to do stuff. I had to find something first of all that I could do.
Yeah.
That wasn't as hard on me as running would have been.
Right.
So I did start gentle walking after 6-7 weeks, and trying not to break into a jog.
Yeah.
Then I found swimming.
Right.
So swimming has helped me massive. Really on the treadmill at home, I have a treadmill, so I'd kind of go brisk walk on the treadmill. Anything that would say, right, I'll clock myself now, I'm going to do 45 minutes, and that's going to be me.
Yeah.
And that, in my head, I knew I had that space where I'd done 45 minutes. And,
because you can jump the gun though as well, can't you? If you're at home a week or two and you're like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Like right now I feel as though I'm dying to, I could go to the gym right now. I wish I could get on the bike right now.
Yeah.
And they tell me, don't, you can really mess yourself up if you don't let these things heal right, but I think that's where the mental side of it is. But, the physical element where you're saying you slowly kind of got back into it.
Yeah.
So you weren't too bad in terms of, you didn't lose your fitness, did you? Or did you lose it a bit?
Yeah, I did. Now I noticed even with my running.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't die when I came home
really?
today.
Yeah.
I was struggling.
Yeah.
Now and then there's days where you could have a great run.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
And you could say, Ginny, I could have done 3 more.
Yeah, and you chalk it down sometimes to sleep, or your water intake, or your food, but sometimes you feel wrecked and you do the best run.
Yeah.
Isn't it that way? And sometimes you can, it's the same way in the gym. Sometimes I'm wrecked and I drag myself to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm lifting heavier than ever, and I'm probably sweating more.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, I'm really glad. You never, I don't think you ever regret doing these things.
No.
You never regret going for a run. It's just hard to get out and do it sometimes.
It's hard to get out and do it.
Yeah.
And you have to try and say, right, you have to be wise in another way, because you have to think, well, if I give myself this few weeks or months to recover and then at least be stronger afterwards, instead of putting yourself in jeopardy.
That's the thing. You look forward and you look ahead and you say, look, I'm doing it for the long run.
Yeah. And sometimes, you need that space.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's to slow you down and think, right, okay, I'm not invincible.
Yeah.
Things can happen to me.
I know, yeah. There's a lot of thoughts, I often say, when you're getting into the food side and the exercise side of things, you have to kind of rewire your brain to look at food certain ways and to see it as fuel more so, and exercise as well. You kind of have to think of it as important as work every day. You definitely, you wouldn't miss work, you'd be in big trouble, or wouldn't go down well, you need it. Exercise should be more important, But I think that as well, that rewiring comes when you get into, say, you're talking about the runner's bug.
Yeah.
I think the more then you run, the more you realise, well, look, I'm putting myself through this hardship, because running is hardship. You're under pressure, and I may as well be right. And you kind of think you fall into that almost, don't you? The healthy eating then after a while, because why bother doing a few runs a week? Would you do a few a week? Would you say?
Yeah, I'm back doing kind of 3 a week now.
3 a week. That's a good number, I think.
So maybe 5, 6, 7 kilometres.
Yeah.
I did a 10 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was delighted because that was my first 10 since last October.
Yeah.
So in my head now, I'm like, okay, I'm back to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's all mental.
Yeah.
You see people as well sometimes, and I would have struggled myself, can recognise it in them, who are starting out running and, a kilometre and a half into it, they want to stop.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's to train yourself to know, just keep going, put the head down, keep going and push through.
It is, and funny enough, we were talking about that Couch to 5k, I downloaded a Couch to 5k app a couple of years ago, and it was this kind of thing of go for a walk for 5 minutes, then run for 5 minutes, then walk for a minute, run for 5 minutes, and it was fine. I finished it, and I honestly thought that I was putting in 100%, and then a friend of mine who is in the army, is a corporal in the army, and also runs a kickboxing club. He said, "You're coming running with me today." And this is only January this year. I said, "Okay." And he said, "By the way, we're going to be sprinting from here to here, there to there, and we're going to go straight into a 5k run, and you're not stopping." And I was like, "I don't think I can do that," And he said, "Right, let's go," And he could see where the army mentality came in, and I realised I was in for this. So a few times I went to stop, and he said, "Don't stop." He said, "You might slow down, do not stop," or whatever. And then the second, third K came into it, and you kind of, you find your level then sometimes, you balance it out. Now, I was tired when I finished, and you actually dropped down onto the ground. He goes, "Get up, your heart will collapse if you go to a complete stop." But then I went out the next day and I did a 5k by myself quicker. And then 2 days later I went out and did a 5k quicker. It's like I broke that barrier. Yeah. I realised that at 160, heart rate, you're not going to collapse. You know what I mean? You can you have to break through that hardship of it. Yeah. And it is a mental barrier, I think. And I look back at all my runs and all my averages were 160, heart rate. And then my newer ones were like 175. But I was getting through it. I was going further and I was doing it quicker. And then I realised that, your threshold is a lot higher than people think. I know it feels like you're wheezing and you can't go further. But then when you do push a little bit further, you get into the swing of it. And I always think you can shut off your brain, I think, and exercise. I often bring earphones with me and listen to music or a playlist or an audio book or something like that. And would you listen to music when you're running at all?
No.
No?
Not a massive earphone fan when running. I find they annoy me more than anything else. And what I was finding when I was going out running, the music or the repetitiveness of the sound when I was under pressure physically would completely annoy me. So I would have to just pull them out.
It's funny, I've asked that question to nearly all my guests on this, and there's always varied answers. Some people like the music, some people don't. It interferes with some people. Some people like sorting out, clears their head when they go running and they sort out what they what to do the next day.
Than anything.
That's probably you, yeah. And would you do much, jumping onto the thought side of things, would you do much reading?
Not a very good at reading books, no.
No.
Not a massive reader. More listening to YouTube channels or like this podcast.
Yeah. Would you audiobooks at all?
Audiobooks, Sometimes. Yeah, I haven't explored
that. It's a relatively new kind of anyway, I think, the idea, or it's only become popular. Really, I know it's around a few years, but really the last year or so, I think it's really more taken off. And the idea of podcasts as well, I think, it's kind of slowly starting to replace people's radios, I think, because people are choosing what they want to listen to rather than waiting for random things to come on the radio. They're looking up an interesting thing and say, I'll save that and I'll listen to it on the way into. If you have a long commute especially, I find, I drive to Dublin every day and I do find an awful lot. I save something, I come across and I say, I'll listen to that for the hour on the way to Dublin, or something like that, or for a long cycle. I'd put on, you know, an audiobook rather than music, you know, that would
on through your phone, would it be through your phone?
True. Well, I put on one earphone through here, and I download one, and I listen to it. Yeah,
that's it. I think I was looking at a watch myself, you know, because I don't actually have a running watch with the Fitbit, but the Fitbit Versa, you know, they said you could, you know, listen to music while you were running, but then you were kind of getting hooked into not Spotify, it's a different company.
Yeah.
You would have to pay monthly for that, which I know you do anyway for any of them. But
see, a lot of these things can add up as well, can't they?
They can add up, but something like that wouldn't be really, for someone like me who's only going out, say, 3 times a week, I'd like to find something that's not too gadgety and download it easily enough.
There's a lot of like things like that. I know there's some. I do bring my phone with me just in case I ever crash, which of course did happen, and I was lucky I had it on me. But you know, you can download stuff to the watch and all. I wouldn't be able to listen to an audiobook when I was running now because I don't think it's enough kind of, you know, go, and I need every bit of go I can get, you know. But I think though the audiobooks are like, it's kind of like a revolution, and kind of like, it's like an escapism kind of, you know, in a lot of ways. And then sometimes I turn it off. It's easy to turn it off, and you can just kind of think your thoughts and relax and enjoy the run or enjoy the cycle or whatever like that in a lot of ways. But I think it's jumping a good bit. But I think we'll jump on to truth now, because I think we have a bit of ground to cover on this one, I'd say, more so. Would be right in saying you'd be Christian?
Be Catholic.
Catholic, okay. Yeah. So were you always, or what?
Yeah, well, my parents were Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
And so the usual, you're baptised, communion, confirmation.
Irish culture kind of thing.
Yeah, the whole job. Strayed away from it. Didn't want anything to do with it, really.
Yeah.
Came back to it when I was about 30.
Yeah, okay.
So
this kind of, you see this trend often, I think, where you kind of have to go through all the sacraments through school, because that's the way schools were, and you kind of lose interest in it in your teenage years, in your 20s a bit, and then some people can kind of have a renewing of it a bit. I think that I found that for myself as well a couple of years ago. But what would you say, kind of, I said a few times on this podcast, we always go into this because it's one of the big motivations for me in life, not just exercising but everything, you know, like I think it gives you a whole different view on life, you know, your morality, you appreciate life a little bit more, I think, you know, but like when you say you kind of came back to it, what would have happened? Because I often say that it was more so experiences I went through, some strange experiences. I don't think everyone has their own kind of ways of coming back to it, you know. I said recently on it that, you know, I think, you know, God knocks on everyone's door. But some people hear it, some people don't want to hear it, some people have the distractions, the TV's too loud, they have the fingers in the ears, some people, I think, you know. But what would you say were the kind of things that brought you back to it? Did you go looking yourself, or did it find you in a way?
I suppose before initially I went back, I was looking. I was looking for something other than, I suppose what I felt was the emptiness of anything that was around me. You know, there's a lot of, I would have went to a lot of spiritualists, and I was getting kind of into angel card readings, and I was kind of going down that kind of occult road, where you know, fortune tellers, and trying to connect them with people who had passed, and you know, stuff like that. So I was looking. It's
very common. A lot of people do. You know, I went to myself to see one. I think it was a bad idea.
And not knowing really that it was harming me, but again searching. But I remember having a friend who I met through another group I was attending, and she was big into her prayers and mass and all that stuff, and I used to be like, okay, that's grand, leave her at what she's at.
Each to their own,
So, but she's a lovely girl, again, very good friend of mine, became very good friends, and she never pushed anything down my neck, but used to kind of drop little seeds here and there, you know, and I remember I was pregnant with my third child at the time, and I suppose a lot of stuff had happened in my life as well. I lost my dad when I was very young, 16. You know, a lot of family tragedies had happened.
Right.
You know, my nephew and stuff like that. Stuff I hadn't dealt with really.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was kind of, you know, as a young mother trying to deal with having kids and, you know.
Yeah.
So she was a great friend to me, and she used to say, like, you know, come to the prayer meeting with me one of the nights. No, I'm not going over there. I don't want to go. And she'd say, go on, you'd love it now. You'd really enjoy it if you come. So I went with her this night, and me not being back to my faith at all, you know, hadn't been to Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't bring my kids to Mass that much, unless it was, I suppose, a christening or wedding, whatever, you know.
Yeah, the usual,
yeah. I went, and they were praying the rosary, and of course I hadn't sat through a rosary and I don't know how long.
Yeah.
But I remember as I was younger, my dad used to always bring me to Mass, and my mum, and my dad would bring me to confessions, and he'd go to confessions, and I remember sitting waiting for him, and I'd go in. It was always love. It always gave me great peace.
Yeah.
And I remember that as a child,
mm-hmm.
you know. But I suppose with life and things that happen, you lose that sense of peace in your heart.
Yeah, I think that by the time you're 30, they say there's so many dimensions going on of your life. It's hard to make time for anything really, you know. And I suppose if you're not focusing on it, you kind of lose your way a bit of it, or
lose your way, and you kind of let go. I suppose for me, how I would describe it was letting go of God's hand.
Yeah.
So I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm doing everything myself, you know. But when she did bring me, I said to her, like, kind of, you know, I've been paying me back. I need to go. Of course, she's like, no, you know, hang on for a little while, hang on. So, must have been about 25 minutes later anyway. She said, would you like to get a prayer? These guys pray with people. Would you like to get a prayer? I said, well, it'll be grand, like, you know, we'll go home because it's getting late. I really didn't want anything.
Yeah.
You know, I felt it wasn't for me, and I just didn't want it.
Too much too soon, probably, even at that,
But anyway, being the good friend that she is, she kind of persuades me, you'll feel better, go on, you know, you'll be grand. It's like, okay, grand. Because I trusted her too, you know.
Yeah.
So I sat down, and I had a prayer, and the man who prayed with me, he had what I didn't know about it, but I know now for it to be the gift of tongues.
Right, okay.
So he prayed with me in the gift of tongues, and it's nothing like I could ever describe to anybody what I felt shifting within me.
Mm-hmm.
So
at that
moment. So he's praying in the Spirit, you know, and in the Holy Spirit. So I literally felt moved, and I felt this release, you know, like the release.
Yeah.
And a great weight lifted off my shoulders. And he had asked me about, well, you know, have you gone to Mass, or have you been back to Mass, or what do you do? Or I said, well, no, well, I'm baptised and everything else. I haven't gone to Mass in years. And when's the last time you had confessions? And Jenny, I think it would have been my confirmation, maybe.
Yeah.
Would have been my last confession, you know. And the idea of even going to confession is like, what do you confess?
Yeah.
You know, what's a sin?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, where do I start? Sometimes, you know.
You know, so literally, he prayed with me again, and because I'd been into so much occult stuff.
Yeah.
I had given over a lot of rights.
Yeah. To
the other side, is what I say.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, they had a right to be there.
Yeah.
And what he was doing, he prayed with me for God to release me and to take back all rights I had given Satan over my life.
Yeah.
And give those rights back to Jesus. And that's what I did in that moment.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's hard to talk about this kind of stuff as well sometimes, because I think, you know, like when you're talking about your friend initially, when she was saying, come on to the prayer meeting, you know, you kind of step back. You know, when you hear these things for the first time, a lot of people kind of step back and say, what are you talking about? You know, and sometimes it puts you off talking about it. Yeah. But I think you're so in your life, you're so heavily influenced by these, this side and that, from the light and the dark in a lot of ways. I think that it's worth talking about. People need to talk about it more, because a lot of people, when they think of religion, think of, what Catholicism has done over the years and the scandals, this, that, and the other, and it put a lot of people off it. But I think it's not about that altogether. There's a the fact that we can I think everyone lives as if we are just a spark of divinity within everyone. Everyone knows how valuable a life is. They know it's not bacteria and chemicals that form by chance, or we know our value. And I think that we avoid these questions in a lot of ways. But like I've never heard anyone speak in tongues or anything like that. And I'd say when you went home that night, did you were you blown away, or were you straight to the front door? Or, what's going on? Or
well, he advised me to go to confessions.
Yeah.
Because essentially, confession is your soul's bath.
Yeah.
So for me, if you were in this room and even if you haven't come in here for a while, dust will gather.
Yeah.
And it's the same with your soul. Even if you haven't done anything major in your life, you still have to, repent of this, that, or the other. We all, we're all sinners. We all make mistakes. We all hurt people. We make mistakes. That's the way it is, and we have to atone for them and make right with God.
Yeah.
And that night, kind of thought about it. I've never felt peace as I felt that night.
Yeah.
So much to the point that I knew it was true for me.
Yeah.
I felt like an immense beam of light. And the only way I can describe that is like God penetrated to the depths of my being, and he showed me he was there, and he illuminated my soul. Yeah. And I felt nothing but love in that moment,
Yeah.
So I was convicted.
Yeah. And you know what? I think sometimes, sitting down with someone who's an atheist or agnostic, it's going to be a stretch to try and convince them of just by saying, I've talked a lot about like I had an experience, something similar, and I went delving into looking up, could this be evidentially possible scientifically, and I looked up, the history of Christ and the cosmology and all these things. And when people were kind of attacking me on it, because I feel as though what I found was that when I had my experience, I found people came out of the woodwork a bit, and it's like they could sense it off me almost, and families and friends, and angry about it, and like I wasn't going around preaching, but it was like they could see it, like there's one example I'm thinking of where I was out with my dad and brothers, and I went to the bar, and we were talking about whatever, and I came back and they were talking about Christ, and they went, you believe in him, don't you? And that's how it started, and the same thing, my friend, one day driving home, one of the lads picked us up from the pub, he started talking about it, and they said, this all happened very short period, and I couldn't defend myself because I didn't know much about it. All I had known is that I'd gone through this experience, so then I had to delve into it a bit. But I think that sometimes it takes that experience, sometimes that, God does knock on everyone's door, and I do believe that. And sometimes maybe you go by going to that prayer meeting, or by saying okay to your friend, maybe you just opened that door that little bit, or you took that little bit of notice of it, and then the light came in or whatever, because I think
she would say, like, she prayed for me, and she was praying for me all the time, because she knew I didn't believe, and she was praying for my conversion, and I believe it was her prayers, because
it's a big thing, if you believe, and people who you love or who don't, because really, if you believe it, that you're trying to, you don't want to push things on them. At the same time, you really hope that they'll get there for their own good, and for the long run. Because sometimes we look at this, and this is all just material. This is just, the other side of life is materialism. And similar enough to you, when I think I was kind of always agnostic, maybe. And then I started falling out of it, falling away from it in my teenage years, in my 20s, and I stopped thinking about it. I think around that age you can do that, you know. You go drinking at the weekends, and you work during the week, and you don't put a second thought, really, you know. But there is, like, I think there's also an elitist mindset from people when they challenge you on it, you know. And I found I had to really find a way to back up, you know, what I was talking about and my beliefs, even though you can't explain to them what happened to you in certain ways. Now, I will explain what happened to me because you have to do it there, and I haven't been in. This is episode 6, and I haven't been talking to someone who has had an experience similar, you know. But I think with the whole materials thing, that I'd say, you know, now that I've looked into research, scripture, and the science behind it, it's helped me build a lot of my faith. And I feel as though there's a lot of things that we think are set in stone. You know, I remember my friend saying to me, I should look up. He was always a school friend of mine. He was always a good Christian. I think he'd always have been. And he was always saying to me that you should look this up and you should think about this. And I was only starting out, and I was kind of like taking a step back and saying, oh, that's already set in stone and all. And it really, you know, opened me up to, you know, looking into things and realising an awful lot for myself, you know, that backed up my own faith. I don't use it as arguments. I do use it as arguments, but only when I'm confronted with it, you know.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what happened to me, and it's a bit. I've told Jimmy. He's one of the only people I've told. Right. I've told a couple of people, but when I as young as 4, I was back as far as I can remember. As a kid, I remember being in bed and seeing these kind of dark kind of silhouettes around the room, night after night, you know. I didn't know what they were, and this happened an awful lot. And what I used to do was, my dad would close the door, turn the hall light off, and go into the room, and I'd be afraid to wake them up, afraid of this, and I'd often curl up in a ball in the hallway, and that's went on for years. We moved around a little bit, and I always, you know, was terrified about it, and I think it went on for so long that it was altering, like, you know, that kind of thing influences you a good bit, I think, you know. I went away after a few years, but I always had, like, the door a bit open, or, you know, even as a teenager or into my 20s.
Yeah.
And I went to see, my mother was going to see fortune tellers, you know. Yeah. And she had, her father and mother had passed, and she was trying to talk to them, and there's a famous one in Canada, and he was talking to everybody, and she had said a few things, strange things happened to her around that time. Now, she said that she woke up and couldn't move, and there was someone, looked like someone was at the end of her bed, and there was this thing, you know, she walking through the house, and the cups would swing, and the microwave would turn on, and it just strange little things like that. But none of us ever chalked down to much. Yeah. I went to see the fortune teller when I was about 19, I think, and a lot of stuff had stopped happening to me for a few years leading up to that, where I thought, you know, I was finally flicking the light off and in the hallway, and I was finally going into bed and okay with things and all, you know. Funny enough, I always kind of said a prayer before I went to sleep, and I think my nana was very religious, and I think she kind of instilled that. But he used to just say glory be or something and then go to sleep or something, you know. Not every night, but most nights. Yeah. But I went to see this fortune teller, and, you know, he barely looked at me. Someone told me, go in there, cross your arms and don't move an inch, because these guys read your movements and all. So I did that, and he spat out everything, you know, and I, not knowing about, you know, the dangers of it. Anyway, went home, and before I left, he asked me, do you want to ask 3 questions? So the first one out of my mouth was, when I was younger and growing up, I had seen these shadows all around the wall. I said, terrible feeling, it's red when it happened. You could even feel it before you saw it. And he said, yeah, this is what this is. And he didn't even look at me and spoke about it, and just, you know, this is visitation or whatever like that, and don't worry about it. Here's a book. You can do what I can do as well. Read this book and study it, and you'll be fine or whatever. 2 days later, I woke up. For the first time in years, all these things all over the place, you know. And I remember getting up when I went out of the room, and I could look in from the light shining in, and they were so black, they were darkening the light and all. I said, what the hell is going on? This is back. Now, I didn't know. I went to see my nana and I told her about it, and she said, you know, well bless you for go and see a fortune teller because you shouldn't have done that, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a bit much, you know. She was super religious, and I was kind of like, all right, okay, you know, whatever. But as the years went on, a couple of years ago, anyway, it came back kind of. It was kind of like that as well. I wake up with, they call it sleep paralysis, but you notice something in the room with you, and it's horrendous. I woke up one night like I was being choked, and my brother that was there, he woke up. He said he felt a hand hit his bed at the same time. He walked out, and this thing like jumped onto the wall. At this stage, I was like, "This is crazy. What's going on?"
Yeah.
So I was stuck into a lot of documentaries. The age the internet came, where Google was coming in the 2000s or whatever it was, and I was old enough at that stage, like a teenager, and I started googling these shadow things, and I realized hundreds and thousands, millions of people had seen them all along the world, like the exact things. There's artist depictions of the exact things, and I thought it was very odd. So I'd seen a documentary with this guy, was seeing these things, and this priest came in because they had scientists monitoring his sleep. Yeah. They couldn't figure it out, and he said, "Just your faith is weak, and you're on that brink of almost being saved," they would say, and not being.
Yeah.
And the way I picture it is like, if you're in a cave and a ladder drops down, and if you go for that ladder, these things will rush out at you almost.
Yeah.
But so what happened was, he said, "Jesus, I trust in you 3 times," and it stopped. Now I had tried everything at this stage, so I had nothing to lose. I wasn't that much faithful. I didn't go to mass, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I said one night these things were there, and I was like 27, maybe 28. I'm 30 now. I was 27, so it's not that long ago. And I sat beside the bed and I said it, and like that, it's like the room lit up almost. It was like this thing came into the room, this light almost, and everything just went away. And I fell asleep within 5 seconds, and I slept so well. It happened a couple of times. I said that a few times, and that was it. And then my faith started to build a bit. It never happened again. And I bought myself a cross to wear, and I've always say my prayers now, and I don't fear any of it anymore at all. And it's never happened since. And I feel as though that was the little bit of opening the door as well when I said them words, like you said as well, by saying yes to your friend. Maybe it opened the door a bit, and I think that like that it found me. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, if you were looking for it and you said them words," I wasn't looking for that. I didn't know what was going to work. I had tried everything. I'd gone to fortune tellers, which is the opposite end of the spectrum. And the Bible even says that's an abomination. Those who speak to the dead. There's nobody speaks to the dead. The masquerade as the dead. And there is demon entities, bad dark entities who do. They're always constantly ready to attack people. And if you don't have your shield, I think my faith is my shield. And if my prayers and all that, and if you don't hold that, carry that, they break in.
They do. Because a lot of people, I find, nobody wants to talk about the devil.
Yeah.
Right? No one wants to say the D word.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
You're mad.
Yeah.
But literally, it's only good and evil.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
There's only one way you're going to go, up or down.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
Yeah.
And I feel, I don't shove anything down anyone's neck like that. But Jesus died for a reason, and He's there for a reason to protect us. He knew what we would need ahead of time. God knew what we would need, and I have great faith in God and in Jesus, and like that. When I was trying to search, why should I believe in Jesus? Why did it take up to this point, to find anything or sense anything?
Mm-hmm.
But I was so closed off many years. I started looking into the incorrupt saints, and I find those so fascinating.
Yeah.
There's something like, I think 200 and I'm not sure on the exact figure, but there's a couple of hundred incorrupt saints in the world, and one of them being Saint Faustina.
Okay.
In Poland, and Saint Bernadette of Lourdes.
Yeah.
And there's no scientific evidence of why these saints they should be decayed.
Yeah.
Or how come a saint, if it's dug up after 10 years, it hasn't decomposed.
Really, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that for me was like, yeah, come on now, you know,
there's something, you know what this, a lot of people say, you know, when you talk about Jesus and God, people are like, oh, that old chestnut, you know, and they back away from it and all. You know, you can fall into thinking about it in a certain way, but I think when I speak to someone who's agnostic or atheist about it, I feel now that I know that much about it. My faith has got to a level where I'm speaking from a position of strength. A lot of people think that, you know, faith is a clutch because you're afraid of death and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very much the opposite, you know. And I think that, you know, even, you know, I talked to a lot of people who are kind of shooting. A friend of mine bumped into me the other day, and he was shooting a lot of cosmology and quantum physics at me, you know. And anyone with a laptop now and a few hours to spare, you know, can, you know, learn an awful lot about something, you know. So I've read an awful lot on recent things, you know, and there was a lot of stuff about the Big Bang and how it came about and the way evolution has been, but there's a lot of gaps in it.
Yeah. And
I think that's where you have to take that leap of faith. A lot of people don't realise how many gaps are in that.
Yeah.
But when you take that leap of faith between, they can't explain how the world came to be, but everyone knows it had a beginning.
Yeah.
So they only narrowed that down in the last few years. A lot of things that faith will tell you that scientists are only discovering now.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible, archaeologists go back and reference the Bible when they're looking for findings or sites and things like that. It's that accurate, you know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I actually wrote this down because I came across it recently. I look at a lot of David Wood and William Lane Craig and a lot of these guys and a lot of their books and what they say and all, but there was one about the scientific revolution, which is the 14th and 15th century. You know, I think there's an idea that the atheist thinks that science is on their side, but I think it's a completely different spectrum. You know, science is knowledge from the Latin word knowledge, and it's just all it does is set up hypotheses. You know, and you set out what you're going to look to find out, and it's just an exercise that goes through, and we get the findings from it, and they can only go so far. That's only applicable to the material world, because you know that's all you can measure or quantify. You know, in your hands and with your sight. But like even the fact that the other realm, I say, like even the conscious mind, they can't actually locate it or figure it out really. Or the fact that we dream when we sleep, it's rather that something inside us dreams almost, because we're not in control of our thoughts. Because you have to actually shut down a lot of your functions to even be able to sleep, you know, to get a deep sleep. And there's a lot of times where you have these kind of meaningful dreams, and people have been interpreting dreams for years. And a lot of people, you know, are much more open to the fact that everyone has a paranormal story to tell, you know, about a haunted house and all. They might not believe in God, but they believe in that for some reason, you know. And it's like, well, why make that stretch us, you know? And you know, you should really, if you're considering one, you should really consider the stronger one. Yeah,
and a lot of people will kind of go for what suits their lifestyle better rather than what's uncomfortable.
That's true.
A lot of stuff in the Bible, people will find uncomfortable to follow.
Yeah, you know? that's it. Yeah, they don't want to change their lifestyle to it, and they rather be more ignorant than look into it, I suppose.
That's it, you know, and really we're accountable for our ignorance too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like God does knock on everyone's door, I believe. But another really interesting thing too is about the visionaries in Medjugorje.
Okay.
They have been having visions since 1981 up to date.
Right.
And there was scientific tests done on those people, you know, there was 5 of them, and while they are in a state of ecstasy, is what they call when the Virgin Mary appears.
Yeah.
What they did was they did tests on them, like, you know, to make sure that they were being truthful. So they would like do tests on their eyeballs, and you know, on their skin with the needles and things that a normal person, you know, you would flinch.
Yeah.
But they never budged.
Really, yeah.
You know, they were in that state from whatever length of time the apparition takes place, maybe 5 minutes, and then after she would leave, they would come back to a normal state, and then they would convey their message.
Right.
You know, the fruits of I've been to Medjugorje twice.
Where is that?
It's in Croatia. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, the fruits of it are amazing. there's many stories of people's testimonies of Medjugorje where one particular one always resides with me was when a doctor who was an abortionist who went to Medjugorje, and whilst he was climbing the apparition hill, he had seen all of the bodies of the babies that he had aborted, all the bones
really, yeah,
of the lives that he had taken.
Yeah, yeah.
Which in turn frightened him. And of course, he repented and he went back home and in turn brought more doctors out and more people of his friends in his circle.
Yeah.
Do you know, the fruits of that is amazing. If you go out to Medjugorje, you'll see, there's at least 20 confessionals, but you will see at least 50 to 100 people in each queue.
Really, yeah.
Nice,
yeah.
It's like, for me, when I went the first time, it was like a little, unknown hidden gem.
Hidden gem, yeah. It's funny, people would say, like, it's mad that people go there. I think it's more mad to go to Spain 20 times and sit in an English bar, each time, When I go, I'm going to Israel in September, and part of my faith, part of culture as well, and part of just seeing, that, I think when you go down that road, you start to become very passionate about it in certain ways. So one big thing was me, I want to see the tomb, I want to see, you can go into the room where the Last Supper was, I want to see that room, I want to see the mount in the sermon, where was that mount, I want to see all these things, I want to go down to the River Jordan, and do all that, and it's better than going to, than Spain or like that, why not go? But when I was saying, it's funny when you're saying the experiments and things like that, there's a couple there that came to mind. There's one, I got a link to below in the video of Ron White. Did you ever hear of Ron White? He made these amazing discoveries. He reckoned he found the Ark of the Covenant, and he tested blood from it. And he went to a place in Israel, they're all Jewish, and he asked where's a good, research facility I could check this out in. So he didn't say anything about it, gave him the blood, and they checked it out and they rang him up and they said, now he tells a more story of what they put it in, the chemicals they put it in, how long they left it, and room temperature and all. But they said that there's something, there's 52 chromosomes in human blood, I think I'm getting that right. And there's 30 some chromosomes from the mother's side and certain from the father's side. But the blood they tested was all from the mother's side. And they said, where did you get this blood? This is all female DNA. And they said, and as well, this blood is living blood. This a caveman uncovered. This is someone who's alive. And they said that's the blood of Christ. And they said them men, they were completely transformed their whole life. They left, because they'd never seen blood like that. But it's amazing, and it's actual factual. And it's funny how people, the higher community just blow that off. That's an amazing find, and that's actually was a scientific find. There's also another experiment we're talking about. People know on top of the devil. People are afraid of horror movies with the devil in it and all. They feel it's so real. They feel it going to bed that night and all. There's that it damages you in that way. It brings that fear into you, and fear is everything. I remember there's an experiment done a few years ago, and it was while they're doing the God helmet. I was talking about the God helmet the last time. They're trying to cure mental illness, and they're trying to put this helmet on. They're trying to get the electrical nerve endings, and they couldn't do it. And they also did, on one side was with a God helmet, people were feeling a presence every time they put it on. Atheists, different cultures, everything like that. But what they did was they had a lot of atheists and they put them in a room and they said, they flick off the light, right? And they know what they're doing. They said, think of God, and some of them start sniggering and think of Jesus or whatever like that. And they're managing their heart rate and everything like that. They said, think of the devil and call on him. And there's a hesitation, and then all of a sudden the heart rates increase. And said, well, hold on, why are you so easy to dismiss, the idea? I think people make this stigmatic idea in their head. And it just goes to show you how real that is, But I was going back to I was talking to my friend about these scientific findings, and how it knocks out Catholicism and Christianity, but it doesn't whatsoever. And what I came across, I'm going to read it off the screen because there's quotations in it. It's about the scientific revolution in the 15th century, and these are all the fathers of science in different ways, and their quotes to why. These are all the questions asked, why they looked into these things or how come they found it. So there was one guy, these are going to be hard names to pronounce, Nicholas Copernicus. He's the instigator, he started the whole thing off. And his motivations were to explore the mighty works of God. That was his own words. Tycho Brahe, he increased the stellar findings fivefold in his time. His words was to study the stars, you have God as a teacher. Galileo Galilei, he's the father of modern observational astrology. He said, when I reflect so many profoundly marvellous things that people have grasped and done, I recognise even more clearly that human intelligence is the work of God and one of the most excellent. Johannes Kepler discovered 3 laws of planetary motion. He said, since we astronomers are priests of the highest God and regard the book of nature, it benefits us not in the glory of our minds but the glory of God. René Descartes, known as the father of modern philosophy, I see plainly that certainty and truth that every science depends exclusively upon the knowledge of the true God, to the extent of that prior to being me aware of him. Blaise Pascal, mathematician, pioneer of the probability theory. There are 2 kinds of people that one can call reasonable: those who serve God with all their heart because they know him, and those who seek him with all their heart because they do not know him. Robert Boyle is the father of modern chemistry. He said, the vastness, beauty and orderliness of heavenly bodies, the excellent structure of animals and plants, the phenomena of nature, just induced intelligence, unprejudiced observer to conclude a supreme, powerful, just and good author. Anthony Phillips, father of modern biology, constructed most microscopes to examine microorganisms for the first time. It is to be hoped then that inquirers into nature's works, by searching deeper and deeper into the hidden mysteries, will more place the discovery of truth before the eyes of all, and the efforts of the former times that love and truth ought diligently to aim for. For we cannot in any manner glorify Lord and the Creator of the heaven than doing that. But Sir Isaac Newton, considered to be the greatest scientist in history, atheism is so senseless and odious to mankind that it had never had many professors. And I think that even to look at, when you look at science and how it was built on, these guys were all Christians. They all believed in Christ. They all followed them things. And, these guys know everything about it. These are fathers of cosmology and, everything, And when I start delving into it an awful lot, but there's more, that there is one side of things like how the earth came to be, but there's also, I've seen a lot lately, they're saying BCE instead of BC, and they're getting rid of Christ in the schools and everything. They're pulling God out of people's lives. And BCE is before the Common Era, they call it, instead of before Christ. But I was really looking into the facts of Christ like that. He started his ministry when he was 30. It only lasted 3.5 years. Now this is for someone who, it's 2019 across the globe because of this man. If he's only 3.5 years in ministry, it's virtually impossible that they could have stolen his body, because there's apparently 3 forms of protection. That's what a lot of people say. Maybe the body was stolen. There was Roman guarding, there was the large stone and the Roman seal. And the penalty for that was crucifixion to the guards. And this is why the Roman Book of Acts never dared suggest the body was stolen. That's not really, people might say it, but it was never contested back then. No one ever went about. But I don't think leaving the shroud behind was an accident either.
No.
They've done a lot of research, and I know they checked into it in the 80s, and they said, oh, this piece is not from it or whatever like that. But apparently, there's a big documentary, I'll probably link it as well, but it actually claims that it's from that time. It is from a man who was brutally beaten and crucified, but only in for a couple of days, the shroud, which is unheard of. What else is there? There was I think there's the 5 appearances after Christ. These 12 apostles were separated and went into hiding, and they came out of hiding because they were so convinced. They were afraid that they would get killed, but they came out 3 days later, convinced. And they were different parts of the map of the world. Some were in Rome at some places, and they were beaten, and they went to their bloody deaths. A lot of them never recanting their story, and they're one of the only groups in history to ever do that. And then it's not just them he appeared to a crowd of over 500 at one stage. And they tried, you got a lot of atheist scholars and researchers trying to explain that, saying maybe they had a mass hallucination.
Yeah.
People are like, well, you can't have a mass hallucination, all seeing the exact same thing at the same time. That's just unreasonable.
Yeah.
And some of the Gospels are written 30 years to begin to write after his death. Like, people say there's a big jump. There's a big jump for some Gospels, yes, but there's some writings, within that lifetime from the people who saw it,
Yeah.
Paul and
And I think for our time as well, that's why, like, I myself, I would have a devotion to the Blessed Mother. I found that when I went to Medjugorje, I had a lovely experience of her.
Yeah.
And I remember I went with my mum, and my mum was kind of, she had been unwell, but we didn't know that her cancer was going to be terminal at the time. So it was before that. So I said, right, will we all club in and bring her to Medjugorje?
Yeah.
So of course, Mum loved the idea, because Mum would pray her rosary every night. Her prayers, she had her rosary beads under her pillow.
Yeah.
Her scapular, she was, the Blessed Mother was her armour.
Yeah.
I remember we were outside St. James's Church, and in front of the church there would be like a statue of Our Lady, and then there was a little railing, and then a good bit away, so from here to your wall out there, that was the seat. So she was off back there at the seat, and I was right beside the railing. So I had knelt down and I was saying some prayers, and I was praying for Mum at the time. And, Our Lady is often depicted as having scent of roses.
Yeah.
Quite strong scent of roses.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know at the time that Mum was praying for me at the same time. So I was kneeling, and the roses just enveloped, they just filled my nostrils, and Mum got the very same at that very same time. Now, there's no roses anywhere.
Yeah. A lot of people say, I chalked it down to coincidences. You can only chalk so many things down to coincidences.
That's
what I mean? Like, you have to be reasonable about these things. You can't just be looking for ways to knock it all the time.
Yeah.
These things happen, and we all know there's a spiritual. It's like it's like people's potential. Everyone believes in potential, even though you can't see it or grasp it tangibly. But everyone knows, if you're not living up to your potential, people might say that that's a real thing. There's a lot of things that are real concepts and beings, and that experiences that we can't. Everyone knows there's a spiritual side to everyone, in certain ways. But I think as well, what was I? There's a line in the Gospel of Thomas, which was actually only discovered in 1945.
Yeah. And
it says, "The kingdom of God is laid out among all men, but only few will see it."
Yeah.
I think it is true. And I think that. But listen to people, and sometimes it's hard to listen to super religious people and say, yeah, maybe they're right. Sometimes, sometimes it might just open the door a little bit, and sometimes that's all that's needed. I think sometimes, a lot of people get stubborn. They get too invested in their own opinions. They don't want to be wrong about something. They don't want to look into it, especially if they're barking about something for years.
Yeah.
They're not going to look into it and risk of being wrong all this time after saying so much as well.
And Jesus, said many times, the road to hell is wide.
Yeah.
And many find it.
Yeah.
It's an easy road. And one book that I have been reading extracts from is Saint Faustina, and she was given exertions from Jesus to write down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she would have given the prayer, the Divine Mercy.
Yeah.
Whereby, I don't know if you've heard that one.
I said it over my nana's bed before she passed. She passed under that cross.
Yeah.
And no one wanted it. I'm surprised. I was delighted to get it. But you're supposed to say it in the presence of a dying. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I mean, it's a beautiful prayer.
Yeah, it's nice.
And
it brings them such comfort, especially if they are that way inclined.
Yeah, amazing. But she had an image that Jesus showed her of people going along their daily lives and kind of not really worried or wondering about life after death, and living in sin as it was, in whatever they were doing in whatever way, and not thinking about God, and they were happy, and then you can see them falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
And she was shown that, and she was shown how they had chosen that themselves.
Yeah.
Through their deafness and through not wanting to hear.
Not wanting to hear it, because there's plenty of evidence there if you want to delve into it. A lot of people are resistant. They don't want to give up that lifestyle, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it'll catch up to them. Johnny Cash has a good song about God. Sooner or later, God will cut you down. And I think that's what he's talking about. If you don't listen, you'll find yourself at 80 or 90, maybe realising your own mortality, and then should I have been listening? Have I wasted this time? While you can, I think we should delve into it at least. It's like the training. Research it. If you have to look into everything that you're doing. If it's going to be a big part of your life, these are one of the most vital questions. If you Google debates on atheism, theism on YouTube, there's millions of views. People are searching, so you get comments from both sides.
Yeah.
But why are atheists looking this up and spending 2 hours watching these things if
they
they're not?
don't believe.
Yeah, these are huge questions.
The miracle of Lanciano as well. It's a really good one to look up about the Eucharistic miracle of the hosts.
Okay.
And one of them was it had been done, I think it was 1900 years ago. It was the first miracle. And the priest doubted the presence himself of the host being consecrated into the body and blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
And he put, usually what happens if you let a host fall on the ground in mass or whatever, you would pick up the host and you would place it in water.
Oh, really?
So it can be disposed of respectfully.
Right, okay.
That being the body of
Jesus.
Yeah. But he put it into the water and it went into flesh and blood. And they got that tested. And like what you were saying, it's the same thing.
It's crazy,
it had the chromosomes, it had the flesh was from a badly beaten heart.
Yeah.
From the front of the chest.
Isn't it so funny that all these things are scientific findings, but no one knows about them?
Mm-hmm.
They're huge findings.
Yeah.
They're ridiculously surely that's enough for people to go and say, what personally me, who wasn't a follower when I said, Jesus, I trust in you, I knew I had to find there's a weight to this name. 2 days following that, it might have been even the next day, I don't know. It was that week anyway. I was driving home and I kept thinking about this church in Carlow for some reason. It kept coming in my head. I turned the radio off and on. I said, what? I'd never even been in that church before. Why is that? I pulled up at home and this car rolled up beside me. And I later find out that this is kind of something working on me. I think the Holy Spirit kind of works. That's the tool. And these people pulled up and said, they asked me, do you know where this church is? The one I've been thinking of. Do you know how to get to this church? I said, yeah, it's actually just straight down over the bridge there, And they didn't even say anything, just drove off looking at me. It's really peculiar. So I went in and started cooking food. I couldn't wrap my head around, it's just funny just to laugh it off. Threw on my phone, because usually I throw on YouTube or I throw on something on cooking music or something. I googled the church anyway and it said this live cam feed for the church. I had never heard of this before. Clicked it on and it was a camera from the church and there was loads of people in it, and I was like, something's just about to start. And the priest says, if anyone's listening in live or at home, if they're close by, come on in. It was the first thing I heard on it. So I was kind of like, here, I turned off the gas and I got changed. And I'm still not, into the whole church thing at this stage. I'm still only at there trying to realise what's after happened the other night. And I walk up and there's cars everywhere, there's people all over the place. There's a parking spot for some reason right outside the church. One, and it was went down for miles, these cars. How that was there, I don't know. I pulled into it. I walked up and there's people even out the back, where you get the holy water, all outside the church. Couldn't get into it, so full. Someone handed me a leaflet and said, go on in, son, right? So where are these people going? I walked in and this guy comes up to me, he puts his hand on my shoulder, he points at one seat left and there's rows and rows and it goes down this way. It's a church in Great Cullen there, the big one. And he points right over to one seat left and he goes, that's left there for you. Right, so I kind of, who's this guy, and what's going on? So I went over and sat down. There were screens, I couldn't really see it, but there were screens up, and this guy got up and spoke. And he was from Northern Ireland. He was a blind man. He was shot by a rubber bullet when he was a young fella up in the north during the Troubles. He spoke about this, renewing the faith he had. It was very strange. It hit home. He spoke for like 40 minutes on it. How this wasn't like a regular mass.
Yeah.
And he was speaking like it was like directly to me. I'd say a lot of people felt that way.
Yeah.
And he got down. He runs his Children in Crossfire charity. Like I sent him an email afterwards, but when I was walking out, I walked by him. I still didn't know what I was doing there, so people were all shaking his hand and leaving. I got in my car. I looked up and I said, I have to go over. I've come this far and say something to him. And I kind of only stuttered out a few words. It's like, I just wandered by mass tonight, but your story really hit home or whatever like that. I ended up emailing him about it and subscribing and doing a few bits with him or whatever. But it's funny. Sometimes when you open that door a bit, you're shown the way. Sometimes in a lot of ways, these things pop up. And they're very strange occurrences that you just can't chalk down as coincidence. Sometimes I think and then it's some people maybe don't want to hear it. Well, that's fine. I think it catches up with you now and again. Not that it's chasing you down, but it's there. It's always there. And I think when you just look, change your opinion, just be open minded about it. Sometimes that's at the end of it. I was reading a funny story there recently about. Did you hear about this Brazilian guy last year who said he was burying his Rolls Royce with him so he could take it to the afterlife with him?
No.
And he's one of the most powerful guys in Brazil. I think his name is. I wrote it down. What was his name? Mr. Scarpa is his surname anyway. But he had the whole world up in arms saying it's crazy, and you can't bring material things after you, But he actually passed. What he actually did, he left a note saying, "I'm not burying the Rolls Royce with me, but I wanted to show everybody what you're doing when you're not becoming organ donors. You're burying something that's so valuable to other people, but the whole world thought of a Rolls Royce must be valuable, and everyone thought about it, but only half people think about, organ donors. So straight away when I heard that was a great idea. Everyone was up in arms about him, and it was only just to make that point. And I went and signed to be an organ donor straight away, and I said, that is right. And I watched a few documentaries of people giving hearts, and it's amazing, really. I thought it was funny, but it's on that kind of note of a funny line. There's a guy, Frederick Brewer, who invented the Pringles can.
Right.
He passed away in 2008, and he actually buried his ashes in the Pringles can. That's a true story.
Right.
I thought it was crazy. But no, I do think that. What would you say to people who are kind of? I know a lot of people of my friends have had similar situations to me. When I opened up to what happened to me, there was about 10 or 20 people who came up and said that happened to me too. Or sometimes you can think you're alone. I think this is where these kind of thoughts, your mental health can get damaged a lot, and that's what the aim is. I think, to isolate you and put you in fear. And when you speak about it, even though you're afraid to speak about it, Jesus said to his apostles, if the world hates you for saying these things, just remember it hated me first. And so basically, and blessed are ye who say my works, even when men condemn you. Or blessed are those who believe and do not see. That was the one. It's a big one. But what would you say to people who, if you had any advice, who are on that middle line where they're a few people come to me and said, I've started thinking about this lately as well. What would you say advice wise be if people were on that and looking for a way of delving into it a bit?
Well, what I would say is, look, you've nothing to lose and everything to gain. When you meet Jesus. My faith has brought me so much healing. God has really healed me in so many ways that I never, even places I didn't know I needed healing, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in all those ways. When I look at people sometimes and I can see brokenness in them, like I would have experienced myself, and I'm kind of compelled to say to them, like, look, do you want to come to mass? Do you want to get help? Sometimes people are afraid to admit that, they might want to go. Like I was. I knew I needed to go to the prayer meeting, but I didn't want to go. But yet, I knew I had nothing to lose.
Exactly.
I had everything to gain. I think, one of the saints said, it was Saint John Chrysostom. He said that once you enter the church, it's not that God won't let you leave, but you won't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me very much.
Yeah.
And great healing. I mean, through the sacrament of confession, like that with the apostles, Peter was the first.
Yeah.
Jesus handed him the keys of the kingdom. And he said, you know, those sins you forgive are forgiven, those that you retain are retained. He gave him that authority to go out and the apostles and be the first priests.
Yeah.
And to save people.
Yeah.
In his name.
And yeah, I think that as well, when you have that calling, you become the apostles. So you have that calling, that responsibility as well to speak your faith, you know, and speak it, you know, you have to take, sometimes it takes a bit of courage to say it sometimes, you know, and a lot of people, you know, there's a trend of atheism, I think, in the last few years, and people say, oh, that's the way it is, and all. Sometimes you're singled out a bit, even though most of the world are still Catholic, you know, believe in Christ. I think it's 2.5 billion who believe, which is a huge, but when you put that into proportion of adults in the world, it's over half the population of adults in the world, you know.
Exactly.
And then that name has such weight to it. Like, it lasted, if this was a crazy man, like there was plenty of, you know, 2,000 years ago, you know, and that was only 3.5 years doing these miracles and things.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have lasted, you know, it couldn't have, you know, when people say, oh, you're a Christian because you're in certain countries. Well, that happened thousands of miles away. You know what I mean? That happened so far away.
Yeah.
You know, I know the word spreads and all, but people are coming back. There's a line as well that says, you know, every man has to be born again, or mankind, everyone has to be born again. I think as well, a lot of people fall off in their faith when they're teenagers in a lot of ways, and then they never look at it again.
Yeah.
But I think that for such an important thing, you shouldn't dismiss it with an uneducated, immature mind, you know, as a teenager. The biggest thing in the world that you figured out when you're 14, I don't think so. You know, like you really have to go back at that. And you might find maybe, like, the possibilities, you might be happy with, oh look, I looked into it and I couldn't find anything. And some people, but at least you didn't lose anything.
Yeah,
you know?
Oh, God will always find a way. I don't know anyone, and even yourself, anyone I've ever spoken to who has met Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's ever looked for him, they've had an experience.
Yeah, it is true.
And they've never walked away and said, wasn't for me.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone yet.
There's a thing, you know, I think, you know, if you're calling it, you won't go on deaf ears. And sometimes all it takes is really thinking about it, though, not just saying the words, you know. You really say, right, for 5 minutes here, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to speak, you know, and see what happens, you know. And I think, like that, no one ever told me a story where they did that and they came back empty, you know, handed.
It's like that parable in the Bible with the seed. You know?
The mustard seed.
No, the seed where it's like the seed of faith.
Yeah.
So the word was being spread, but some of the seed fell on fertile ground,
that's right,
and some of it grew up. That was the people who were willing to listen.
Yeah.
And some of it did fall, but it didn't actually grow because the cares of the world choked it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
and you can swing as well. You know, the parable of bearing good fruit as well. I think that when you do find it, you know, I think that you have to, like, one of the ideas with this podcast was to kind of straighten out, to give people who are on that verge, you know, a way of looking at it where they can justify it, you know, and let them know that there's a lot of people there and it ties in so much in a lot of ways. I think that everything was spoken in parables as well, so that could be timeless, I think, as well.
Yeah, and people could understand.
Yeah, no matter what culture you're in, everyone understands the idea, like, you know, everywhere there's plants and there's seeds, and everyone knows the concepts, you know. I think it was very intelligent for someone who was just a man, you know, or, you know, like the way these things are still being learned about.
And everything in the parables, you know, kind of linked back to creation.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You know, God created seeds and plants, and he was able to convey these things to humans through creation. And, you know, talking like that with, you know, your seeds and your plants and...
Yeah.
Like...
It's even the seeds in the water, you know, like, when you think of it, like, where we get our medicine from, it's from plants, and, you know, and where we grow our crop from, we just bury that seed again, that comes up again. It's amazing, you know, just the soil of the earth. Yeah. You know, it's bringing forth the life of it, you know. Yeah. It's the fine-tuning of the universe. It's a lot of the Kalam arguments I often watch William Lane Craig speak about, you know, and the Kalam cosmological argument, where there's a lot of things where it's just the finely tuned universe is too for the information in DNA, and the pin drop apparently is a stack of books, mile high. It's ridiculously, they're still trying to figure it out this day and age where they can do amazing things. Cars run on anything, and lights come on, even like people can move eyebrows and their wheelchairs can move now. Like it's and at this day and age they still can't get down to. They often talk, there's multiverses and all this kind of thing, but I think we're jumping the gun there, because when you can't explain the basics of what you're talking about, when you can't find a reason for why matter came into existence, what was there before it, what caused the explosion, the universe is run by laws, inertia, centrifugal force, gravity, who gave the laws and all. You're jumping the gun, jumping into bigger questions, and then when you ask the simple questions, you can't say, well, we don't know that yet, and that's genuinely the answer they have. And it's flawed. There's bigger issues we're thinking about right now that don't actually clash with scientific evidence so far.
And even I suppose for nowadays, like for people my own age, and our age, I get where they're at a time in their life where they might be thinking about God, or you can always come back to, well, there's always right and wrong. Like God has imparted to us the natural law, and the natural law is you have a conscience and you know the difference between right and wrong.
Exactly. So morals, it's very hard with materialistic worldview to derive morals from anywhere. Like we have the God as the standard of good, you have the evil, and we all have this inner voice of consciousness, of the conscience mind that tells you what's good and bad. We all know you do good things, good things manifest, I think, The
language has been lost over time. Like, I find that speaking to people that their vocabulary wouldn't have sin, the word sin, or you don't use this word or that word. Whereas, for me, like with my children now, I like to pass on what I learned and what I'm learning now, because it's fruitless for me to say, right, I believe in God and Jesus, and then just turn around and not do anything with them. I'm trying to at night time now read them children's Bible.
And they love them stories.
They love them, and like my son will often come to me and he'll go, "Will you read me the one about Jesus lowering the leper?" He loves that one, and things that touch his heart, But I suppose it's just growing. We're growing every day, and nobody can argue with your personal testimony.
That's it. And I know to other people it can't be proven, but it's personal because it's going to prove it to you. And I think everyone, if they look for it, they'll find their own one. You have I studied near-death experiences last year, and the amount of people who have them, it's like 1 in 20 across the world, and like literal surgeons are being converted by just witnessing these things, by not being able to explain it. Some stuff is just the amount of evidence in every field, neuroscience and everything I was talking about. They're studying people's brains when they pray, and there's like an extra portion of brain lights up. It's like they use an extra portion that no one else uses. That it's like the connection or something. But in every form of science, or not even science, but just every dimension, there's mountains of faith. But there's just enough that, people often say, why isn't God, shown to everybody then? Sure, then why would it be a test of faith at all? You need to find it, and you have to go looking for it. That's the whole point. You have to make the effort yourself.
And like that in Knock as well, the apparitions of Knock, they Our Lady appeared to 17 different age groups, so that it couldn't be contested. You've got maybe 4 or 5 year olds right up to like 80-year-old, and they're all a different group of people that seen the same thing for the apparitions at Knock. Like those things are not explained and can't be explained.
No, I think it's good to look at them. The universe is there, and we have all these things, and it's good for us to understand them. It's good to look into it, you know. So, you know, I think that's fair play to you for coming out and speaking to it. And I get this up for. Yeah, thanks very much.